Okay. Hello. It is I, Sting Urameshi. You probably already saw me before, but that's because earlier we had some technical difficulties. But I believe we're fine right now. Joined with me today is the man in the mask himself, Blaque Pauldron. How would you say
Yo,
hi to the people? You know,
yo.
right. And I decided to interview him today about the whole black representation jizz that we're doing, that I'm doing, the
You sure that's the
video.
word you want to use?
It's not the word that I want to use. I'm just speaking. Anyways, describe.
Semi-professional. Semi-professional.
describe. Anyways, Blaque Pauldron, why won't you tell the people who you are and what you do in terms of career and future goals?
I am a producer. I have voice talent. I am a writer. I'm also a stuntman. And I've got a lot of people supporting me. And as far as the future is concerned, I plan on, doing as much work with these people as possible through my Discord community and seeing what goes on from there. I'm also on YouTube.
The links to social media will be in the description below because I'm not about to leave the boy hanging. Well, not boy, man. He's older than me.
It's
So,
unfortunate that I'm not starting my Twitch channel starting it back up just yet. That's going to be next year.
I mean, that could be in the description too.
Yeah. We'll put it in there. I'm still on Twitch. It's just that don't
Right.
expect anything until February.
Now, speaking of that, are there any current projects that you're working on right now? Just give us maybe like one or two. You know.
I'll give you the two most prevalent ones that are happening right now on my end. I am writing my own comic book. More details will come out about that soon. It'll be on Webtoons. That's what I can tell you right now. So go ahead and make yourself an account now. Um, and the other project that we've been working on, and I've been in the middle of a move, so I haven't finished it yet, is Whispers in the Dark. It is our comedy, drama, action series on YouTube based on Guild Wars 2, which is an MMO. We animate the characters. It's kind of like the same thing as like what Machinima does. If
Mm-hmm.
you're not familiar with that kind of like web series on YouTube, things like that. But yeah, comedy, action, drama, romance,
Mm-hmm.
passion.
And it has me in it, so you have all the more reason to check
Sure
it out.
does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sting, I also work with Sting on dubbing and all that too. Yep.
Right. Yes. You know. Yeah. Speaking. Well, not speaking of that. Since you are a black man. What does being pro black mean to you, or the whole idea of being pro black? What does that mean to you? Do you have any particular thoughts about that, or what?
Well, I'll start off by saying that I don't necessarily. I believe that the whole black and white thing is like any of that kind of stuff, any of those kind of denominations. They are. I hate using this term, but they are the problematic thing in the first place. Um, I personally agree with Morgan Freeman. I'm going to stop calling you a white man, and you're going to stop calling me a black man. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're people first and foremost, but the black
Right.
identity is a prevalent thing, and for a big part of my life, I identified. Well, I mean, I still do, but you get what I'm saying. I identify as black,
Mm-hmm.
just to make it easy on people. Um, but with that, that does mean something to me. If I'm going to identify myself as something, it's going to mean something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what being pro-black means to me is education first and foremost. I have been around quite a while, and I have pretty much identified what the issue is: a lack of education and a lack of access to quality education.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about stuff that matters, being good with your money, being able to start a business, being able to be a community leader, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Community outreach, even like there's just so much that we're lacking as far as these skills are concerned, and you see in every other area, every other ethnic group succeeding because
Mm-hmm.
they can just make this happen.
Right.
Asians all work together, white folks all work together. You see it in pockets. Like we're doing better nowadays. Like a lot of black people are getting together and actually doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my little Discord community, included. Like we're majority black. We've got Hispanic, white. We've got a little bit of everything, but it started off as like an all black group, and we
Right.
got it to where it is now, which I think is pretty good. But regardless, like the lack of education is what hinders us
Hmm.
as far as any forward progression from any other pro-black movements that I see. It's always this preaching to the choir. It's always this
That.
secular knowledge and things like that,
Hmm. Could you?
and the reliance on ideals that really don't help us at all.
Right, like such as the ideal of black people being oppressed, right?
Sure,
Right.
that's one thing.
Well, what are your thoughts on people saying that black people are oppressed?
Well, yes and no. Ironically, the biggest oppression that black people face, in my opinion, is the constant perpetuation that we are oppressed
Right.
by some outside boogeyman force that is the man, or whatever you want to call it, or the white man, or anything really. It's no
Mm.
different than you see anybody else who complains about somebody else holding them back. Like you see a lot of white people in poverty blaming everything on immigrants, right?
Right.
But it's like you're not going to go out into the field and pick oranges and things like that. You're not going to work those jobs. You're not going to create unions in those jobs and demand better wages. You know what I mean? You're not going to start from zero
Hmm.
and try to make something out of it. Like that's where you got in the plumbing industry. That's where you got in electricians unions and things like that.
Right.
That's how all that started.
Hmm.
But as far as black people being oppressed, as a black person, I have never in my life felt oppressed. And I grew up in like half suburbs, half hood. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I was one of those go betweens. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
We were right on the line between the good part of the suburbs and the hood.
Hmm.
So I got to see like both sides of the fence all the time, how people were living and stuff like that. Literally, my street was like night and day. It was like middle class and then lower class. It was night and day. Once you got to a certain part of my street where I grew up, spent the first like I want to say the first like 16 years of my life, uh, night and day difference.
Hmm.
There was the side that mowed their lawns and waved to their mailman and had little get-togethers. You'd see your neighbor across the porch wave hello. Everything was happy. All your kids played together. And then you had the other half of the street where it was just like pretty violent, pretty often, things like that.
Right.
These things, these things. How do I put this? Everybody like experiences things differently, of course,
Hmm.
and certain people get a voice and they talk about their struggles. People relate to that, and then they all start, they all get into this little echo chamber,
Hmm.
right? And I think that like that perpetuation, because they don't know where it all comes from. They're just kind of living, and no one's teaching them any better, or they've fallen into bad habits, or
Right.
maybe there just ain't something right in the water. I don't know. But as far as being oppressed, it's a choice at this point.
Right. People are probably gonna compare that statement to what Kanye West said.
I don't really I don't really care too much what somebody who has millions of dollars has to say about issues that I don't see changing.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because like I keep seeing this stuff. People keep talking about how they're oppressed and things like that, blah blah blah. But it's like, how many black businesses do you actually support?
Right.
How many people have you? Because
Exactly.
like think about it. If we had the kind of camaraderie that, because not all Asians like each other.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? They're competitive within their own, social ecosystem and things like that, but they have an understanding that divided they will fall to the same nonsense that we're suffering from.
Hmm.
And that we've held, and granted we were oppressed at a point in history.
Yes, at a point.
Um and in some pockets of this country we are still oppressed. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying for the big part of it, we could have been solved this issue a long time ago. It's just that the lack of support within the black community itself. If you want to believe in that whole being black and stuff like that, if you want to identify as black, etc., etc., you gotta really be about it. You can't just be every man for himself and then identify as black. You know what I'm saying? That's
Hmm.
why we get so. That's why we get so many of these people
These.
who later in their lives kind of drop that whole black identity thing. You know what I'm
Right.
talking about?
Right. Right. Or
A certain Jenny from the block, rather.
would you say that you would agree with any of the quote unquote woke black people?
Can you be a little can you be a little more specific about that? We've talked about that kind of thing in the past, but like
People
specifically.
specifically, I'm talking about people who try to act politically correct.
Oh, that kind of wokeness. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of.
Because there's a wokeness exists in very many degrees. What we're talking about specifically is the politically correct wokeness. I'm assuming this is pertaining specifically to black issues.
Well, you know, the people who have Black Lives Matter in their Twitter bios and whatnot. Those type of people.
Um, I want to believe that the people participating, not the people who are influencing it, but the people who are participating in the Black Lives Matter thing are doing it out of like, genuine desire to see change and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see it being very effective.
Mm.
This kind of attitude, this kind of political correctness and
You know, the same
Black
people,
Lives Matter thing.
the same people who say that black people are oppressed.
Yeah, no, no,
In a
no.
way.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I understand your question. The
Mm.
thing is that yeah, Black lives do matter, and I understand that if you look at the statistics in the way that they're looking at the statistics, it seems like Black lives are marginalized and taken for granted,
Mm-hmm.
just like they have been pre civil rights movement and post civil rights movement technically. Um, like every day is no different than the Rodney King issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how they're looking at it. And for me, it all comes down to attitude. So yeah, in a lot of places the cops suck and they're doing a lot of crooked shit that they shouldn't be doing. But when I look at police statistics, armed black men being taken in without harm.
Mm.
They tackle them and arrest them and stuff like that. But I mean, like they don't end up dead. And we're
Right.
talking about armed black people who have shot at the police,
Mm-hmm.
and they get taken in alive and things like that. So what's up with that? The answer to that I hear a lot is, oh well, they got to get a few of them or else it'll to try to cover up all the bad stuff they're doing. It's like I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think one of these black men I'm talking about. I can't remember his name, but you can look. This is all stuff that you can look up. It's all on record. Just like all the black men who have died, they're all on record.
Mm.
This guy gunned down a cop. It was and they took him in. They took him in, and now he's serving a life sentence.
Mm.
So I don't agree with the whole police brutality thing. I don't think the police are any more brutal than they've ever been.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying there's not room for change, but Black Lives Matter seems to lean on the idea that if something isn't done, we're all going to be put back in chains again.
Right.
And I don't believe that for a second. That there's just no way.
Mm-hmm.
Slavery's not coming back. I mean, like, first of all, it already exists if you're in the prison system. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people who get involved with Black Lives Matter want to genuinely create change, but a lot of the stuff that Black Lives Matter is getting involved in, to me, just isn't effective.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about people who see that as a trend, though, as a trend to act?
Oh,
politically
I
correct?
100% agree with that. That is a lot of these social activist movements, like people call them SJWs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They've earned that titles SJW because like people say it facetiously, people say it ironically, people say it derogatorily, but they've earned that because in general nothing's getting done. No real change is actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And in this ecosystem right now, a lot of people are going more for anarchy. That's why you're seeing like Portland still burning to the ground to this day. That's why you're seeing places still talking about defund the police and things like that. It's because these anarchists have just come out of nowhere and they're getting involved. They're basically hiding amongst they're wolves hiding amongst the sheep.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got people out there peacefully protesting, believing that they're making change, and then you've got these guys throwing bricks and setting fires everywhere.
Mm.
And what are they going to do? What are the peaceful protesters supposed to do about them?
Right.
You don't know it's them until they do it. You can't vet people before a protest. If there's going to be a mass gathering somewhere, anybody can show up.
Right.
So I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of the measures that Black Lives Matter and other social activist groups have taken to kind of change things or get a conversation going that leads to change, they've invoked a lot of chaos by not doing this a better way, a smarter way, if you will.
Right.
And I blame it on the influencers. You have gullible young people. I'm not trying to speak to young people as if I am alien to young people. I am also a young person.
Right. No, you're fine.
Yeah,
You're fine.
yeah. But I just want to clarify because like that stuff sounds kind of weird sometimes when people try to like isolate themselves from a situation. I'm trying to make change my own way. I personally believe it's the media's fault. The media gets to tell whatever story they want, and then gullible people, like I was just talking about,
Right.
gullible, impressionable people, even older people, believe this stuff. Because see, the gullible people believe it because they're gullible. The older people believe it because they're stuck in their ways, and they just want somebody to reaffirm their opinions.
Right.
And this is what the media does constantly. They deceive gullible people, and they justify the opinions, the bad attitudes, and what have you for the older generation.
Right.
That's how they keep people watching. They know what they're doing. It's entertainment. So as somebody who is a producer who wants to not break into the entertainment industry, I'm getting in there no matter what. But my point, the point that I'm trying to make with what I'm doing is that things don't have to be this way.
Right. No.
So and just to summarize, I believe that the media, influencers, things like that, are pushing a lot of these agendas that just aren't doing anything and causing a backlash, if you will.
Right. Okay, well, you did mention media, so how about you describe the type of media you do consume? And once you say that, would you say that you're well versed in said media that you do consume?
Okay, so the type of I'll do it in the two part like you phrased it.
Yeah.
The type of media I consume, I grew up in the 90s.
Right.
And I watched a lot of TV in the 90s. Everything everything you could think of that would appeal to a adolescent all the way to I don't know what you call kids before they're like 13, but all that kind of stuff.
Not preteen, but like before preteen.
Before preteen, because I was, by the time I was 10, it wasn't the 90s anymore, right? But in general, I watched a lot of stuff, and I was very exposed to things, probably stuff that I shouldn't have been watching as a kid. I used to watch HBO at night, and if you grew up in the 90s and you watched HBO at night, you know how wild that got. I used to sneak under my mom's bed and watch TV, and she always had HBO on. That was like the number one thing I remember her watching. But yeah, so she always had HBO on, and I saw a lot of stuff that made me very worldly at a very young age, and so I looked at things differently. So I really enjoyed a lot of the positive, uplifting stuff. I used to watch Captain Planet religiously. Sonic the Hedgehog is one of my favorite characters of all time because he just didn't give a fuck. But also he was a good dude. That's the kind of like person I try to aspire to be. Somebody who doesn't care too much what other people think, but at the same time fights for the little guy.
Right. Right.
That kind of thing, that kind of inspirational stuff. So that's the kind of stuff I like to watch. I watched everything on Nickelodeon, everything on Cartoon Network, which wasn't much because back then it was just Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes. But yeah, no. I watched wrestling. My cousin got me into wrestling early on.
Nice.
Nice. I'm not so into it now, but I saw all that stuff. Sting, ironically, Sting with the trench coat and the baseball bat, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I everything, dude. I like whatever you could think of that came out back then, I watched it. And so my tastes have evolved into today, and there just isn't a whole lot of it. So originally I wanted to be an engineer.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Career-wise, I originally wanted to be an engineer.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And then being an engineer, I floated between being an engineer and people told me I was really good at like debating and stuff like that. So like a lot of people told me I should be a lawyer or something.
I mean, you are good at debating.
Sure. Um, but yeah, no, like all throughout my life, people would tell me like, "Hey, you should be a lawyer or something. You should study law. You should practice law." And I was like, "Man, I'm really, I think I'm gonna just like, because I was thinking of life as like, you do the school thing, you get a real job, you invest in some stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're good. You know what I
Right.
mean?" And then I started slowly creeping into the entertainment industry. Like I said, I'm a stuntman. That
Mm-hmm.
came a little later. I people would tell me I should do radio because they like the sound of my voice. And so after hearing that enough, I started like doing voice acting just for fun.
Mm.
Not professionally at all. Like I never approached anybody, I never tried out for anything. None of that.
Right.
I just started doing it for fun on my own with friends while we were, playing games. I would role play
Mm-hmm.
like like in real time, all that kind of stuff. I would do impressions of people, and I got and like by doing that over years, I got good at it, and so I decided to do this. And I was like, okay, well, I'm also good at writing. I did a lot of English classes. I don't
Yeah.
know how I just kind of discovered that I was good at writing. I never really tried to be a good writer. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I took all those talents and things like that. I was like, okay, I'll go into entertainment. Let's see if I can go into entertainment. And so the media I started to consume then, I'm an average '90s kid coming into the 2000s. Once the 2000s hit, I'm like, I'm gonna make my own stuff.
Right.
So I don't even watch like television anymore. Of
Mm-hmm.
course I still watch Netflix and HBO Max and things like that, but I don't watch television anymore. I don't sit down and watch
Ye-
like 3 hours of TV and then move on or do
I
whatever
don't.
after that.
I don't think most people do. Honestly.
It's well, I mean, I stopped watching TV in a time where we thought TV would be like around forever, but now we're seeing that it's slowly being phased out.
Right.
And so like me, I don't tell people, I don't explain that to people anymore because most people, like you said, don't really watch TV anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much being. I never thought of myself as being special. It's just a choice that I made. But now I'm noticing that, oh, I was just ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I still consume the same stuff. I used to play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, things like that. I ran the tabletop game club at my school, so we did all that stuff for 4 years.
Mm.
Um, that was my high school career. I was mostly known in the high school for running the tabletop gaming club,
Nice.
and and that's where I got a lot of my early support because we would like when we're playing D&D and stuff like that, we would role play things like that, blah blah blah. But we all consume the same type of media and things like that. Mostly positive stuff, mostly uplifting stuff. I'm really into music. Um, I love going to the movies. I prefer action, stuff like that. I like really high intense action stuff.
Right.
The Matrix is probably one of my the first three, my favorite movies. I haven't seen the new one yet. I don't even know if the new one's out. But as of recording this, I don't know where the new Matrix is coming out.
Me
But
neither,
yeah, no,
actually.
but am I well versed in that media? Short answer, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm the type of person, and I've always been this way. I'm the type of person who doesn't just watch something just to watch it, or just because I think it looks cool or sounds cool or whatever like that. Anything that I listen to, anything that I watch, anything that I get into art wise, I want to know more about it.
Yeah.
I
Right.
love to have a deeper understanding about everything that I'm into. And
Mm-hmm.
so the only stuff that I'm into is stuff that I have a deeper understanding of.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, being that you are a black man, in
Mhm.
your time as a kid in the 90s, have you seen a fair share? Have you seen black representation at all? If not, have you seen like enough, if not a lot? If so, can you name at least five examples, five black characters from the 90s?
Mhm.
Or in your time as a kid, in your time, you know,
Mhm.
the era before this era. Name
Yeah, yeah,
five
yeah.
black characters that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I see where you're going with this. Now I'll start it off like this. I'll start it off like this. Um, Representation wise, because the kind of life I've lived since I was a toddler, that kind of thing. You have to be taught this kind of stuff. Like this whole you have to be taught about race, things like that. Because I remember for a good part of my life, I'm one of those kids that can remember really far back
Yeah.
into their early childhood, but I
Yeah,
can't remember
same.
everything. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
I don't ever remember a situation coming up where it was like, oh, this black and white thing. You know what I'm saying? Like this race thing. I didn't get into that until after I was like in second grade.
Mm.
Okay, I had no. I mean, I knew what black people were and I knew what white people were, but like I didn't know what was going on in the background of it. You know what I'm saying? That was
Right.
something I didn't have a deeper understanding of. I just knew that, oh, if you're brown or dark skinned, you're black. If you're not that, you're white. So it's it made sense to me. I mean, if you're a girl, you're a girl. You're a guy, you're a guy. If you're black, you're black. If you're white, you're white. You know what I
Right.
mean? It was that simple. I didn't know there was extra stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Of course I didn't. I was a kid. But so like it started off like this. The first cartoon I can ever remember watching was Rin Tin. That's the first cartoon I can remember watching. Okay, and I'm sitting there drinking my Kool-Aid, and that's probably why too, because of the sugar, and
It's cart.
um,
It's cart.
don't give your kids Kool-Aid. Okay, I'm fine, but like, don't give your kids Kool-Aid. That's not a good thing to do. Yeah, but that was the first, and Rin Tin's a white guy. Rin Tin is about a young like private investigator slash archaeologist or whatever. He did a lot of stuff. He wore a lot of hats. Um,
You mean wait?
but
You
he
mean
got in all this like crazy adventures, and
do
it's a
you
book series
mean
that
you
precedes
mean
the cartoon.
Tintin or you mean
It's Rin
Tintin?
Tin. It's Rin Tin.
Renton is the dog.
No, you're
Tin,
right.
Tintin like no Renton was like the live act because I'm looking it up right now. Uh, yeah, Renton
I
because I've heard of Renton and I thought like they were sort of the same thing also, but like I think Renton is like this German Shepherd looking dog, but Tintin you're talking about the dude
No,
with
no, The
like
Adventures of Tintin. You're right. You're right. You got
yeah
it. The
yeah
Adventures of
yeah
Tintin. You're right. But that's what I'm
yeah
talking about. That was the first. This is the first cartoon. It was on Nickelodeon. This is the first cartoon I could ever remember watching.
right
And it had a white protagonist,
mm-hmm
and it was based on a book series. I found out later in life that it was actually based on a book series.
right
Um, and so I thought it was cool. Like I think that's really where I got into like action because that was the first cartoon I remember watching, and it had a lot of action for what it was. It was just this white kid and his dog getting into crazy stuff.
right
Um, yeah, I think I blame that for my action addiction or my preference rather, my action preference.
right
Very very adventurous, very actiony things like that, and so I gravitated towards that. So this is why I want to start it off like this because everything that I would watch and get into going forward would have to be an action series, an
right
action cartoon. And the 90s had no shorts of these, okay? There
nope
was no shortage of them.
nope
Now, you want to talk about representation, right?
yes
Okay, so like you had Captain Planet. That's Kwame. Kwame was the leader of the Planeteers.
mm-hmm
Also, Whoopi Goldberg voiced Gaia. Now, Gaia is supposed to be an ambiguous figure, but since she was voiced by Whoopi Goldberg, and we all could tell, even as 90s kids, that was Whoopi Goldberg because Whoopi Goldberg was in everything in the 90s. You recognize that voice. It's like, oh, Gaia's black too. Nice.
I mean, do I want
The
to
spirit
count?
of the Earth is black, and she
Do I
created Captain Planet.
do I want to count that in the list though?
Oh yeah, I would count Gaia if you want to put it in your list. I would count Gaia absolutely.
Oh shit! I mean,
The character herself is supposed to be racially ambiguous because she's a goddess.
she looks light skinned actually. No,
I mean, but she's voiced by Whoopi Goldberg though. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
a lot of the stuff about the 90s was very on the nose, so I took a very on the nose reaction to that. I was like, oh, it's Whoopi Goldberg, so it's got to be black.
Mm-hmm.
I count her as black. I think Gaia from Captain Planet is black personally.
Right.
But yeah, no, but like you want to talk about the protagonist, Kwame. Kwame was the level-headed leader of the Planeteers. He was the first one to receive a ring from Gaia. He was the problem solver. He had the strongest power of all the Planeteers.
Right.
The man could rip the planet in half if he wanted to, but he didn't, and that's why Gaia gave him the ring because he knew he wasn't gonna fool around with that stuff and try to get bitches with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But yeah, no, like Kwame was cool. All right, and then you had other shows like there was as far as I was concerned there was a huge black like there was a huge black presence in
Mm-hmm.
cartoons from the late 80s and the early 90s. You had Wayne Head, CJ and Jamal, Fat Albert was still around.
Yep.
But these aren't necessarily action shows. These are just shows that were on around the time. Like I'm trying to go back and think of shows that had black characters in it. Another one that comes to mind is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yep.
Zack was the coolest character ever.
Yes, he was.
Okay, and
It's
growing up in a black community, okay, with other black kids and watching Power Rangers and all us going to the cafeteria and talking about the Power Rangers and stuff like that, Zack was always a huge topic, okay? Everybody liked Zack. Everybody wanted to be Zack. Everybody wanted to be the Black Power Ranger, okay?
Right.
I was black. I was the Black Ranger. Whenever we did the thing, I would always call the Black Ranger. Whenever we, like how it is as kids, you get outside and you start pretending to be the Power Rangers and stuff like that. I called Zack every time. No, I get to be Zack. I would always wear black in it. Like I think that's kind of where I got that whole Blaque Pauldron, I told you there's no real story behind what I do. It's just kind of like a motif.
Yeah.
But my favorite color being black came from the Power Rangers. I can tell you that with 100% certainty.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the first Zack from the Power Rangers was actually the first black superhero that I acknowledged as like a black superhero. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So that was really important for me for getting into superhero stuff because I was in the Power Rangers before I was in the Marvel and DC.
Right, same.
Yeah. So like that's what led to that, and so and then we had trying to think. They were all over the place. Like if I can remember the names of the shows, because that's really the problem I'm having is remembering the names of the shows, not necessarily the faces of the characters themselves. And we had multiple seasons of Power Rangers growing up in the '90s, and so there was always a black face in Power Rangers. Oh man,
would you say?
I wish I could remember some more.
I can help you out if you Spawn.
I didn't have access to Spawn.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have like cable until later in my life. Like closer to the early 2000s is when I really started like getting cable.
Right. Well, you don't have to like from the 90s, just like before, like even in the 2000s.
No, I mean like in general, yes. Like to answer that question generally, I don't remember ever going more than one show without seeing a black person. There was just no white dominant shows that I was watching. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I think I get what you're getting at. Like the black representation thing. Like, yeah, it was all over the place. I don't remember a situation where I was missing out on black people being represented in anything I was watching.
Right.
And in an important way, not just some side character or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So
you pretty much already answered. Would you say that there's no representation for black people? You already answered that.
Yeah. I would.
You already answered that.
There is plenty of black representation. I think.
Yeah. Now, do you think that people are lying when they say there is enough representation? Or do you just think that people are just oblivious and ignorant to the representation that is around them?
Are they lying?
Are they lying or are they blissfully unaware of
so lying about not having representation. Okay. So I think I like to think the best of people, and I think they're just unaware.
Right.
And that makes sense to me. The reason why I can say that makes sense to me because it's like, again, that question that I posed earlier, how many black businesses do you actually support? So if they're not aware of all these different black businesses out here that are looking for support from the black community specifically, why would they acknowledge the, shows that aren't just in your face? Like the mainstream stuff, you can't avoid it, but all these other things out here, especially comic book wise, independent media, things like that are black owned and operated and represent black folks, and they talk about there's no representation. So they got to be ignorant, right? If they are lying, then I don't understand what the goal is here. But you know what I'm saying? If they're lying,
I wouldn't I kind of phrased it wrong. I wouldn't say lying per se. I do agree that it's more so that they are just unaware and ignorant of the representation that already exists.
And that's a shame.
Yeah. It
Because I,
definitely
being a
is.
black creator too, I have a lot of. I mean, my casts are diverse, but whenever I
Hmm.
write anything, but I do feature a lot of predominant characters that are
Hmm.
black.
Right. Now,
Because I'm black, and so I try to write what I know.
here's a question that I actually didn't put on here. What I should have. Do you think that the there's a shift in the media that sort of influence? Do you think that because people don't know that there are black characters or black representation, do you think that's the fault of the media?
No, no, that's not the media's fault. The media has actually done a fair job of making all this content available to people.
Mm.
The way that I find the media works, um, in no uncertain terms, but the way things usually work is that the more money you put into advertising, the more drowned out everything else gets.
Mm.
So people have to take the extra. It's still there. It's just blanketed by all this capital going to, everybody's talking about Spider-Man right now.
Right.
And you want to know why? Because Disney and Sony and Fox and all these other big media companies, entertainment companies, they have millions of dollars to drown out the competition so that you only hear Spider-Man this, Spider-Man that, Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but all the other stuff is still there. They're still writing comic books about black people. So
Yep.
if you're a black person who is into black comic books, you have no excuse. You just have to do a little bit of extra work to find
Mm-hmm.
it. If you're looking to digest anything, you have to be the one to put in the due diligence to find it because
Right.
it exists. I have never been in a situation where I can't find what I'm looking for in entertainment.
Mm.
But if it doesn't exist, this is why I started my company because
Mm.
I want to make my own stuff and fill in the gaps that I feel are missing.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that I feel is missing that I could do a good job of providing, and there are stuff that I like that I feel like I could do better than how other people are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Mm.
But yeah, all you got to do is look for it.
Right.
It's there.
Now, do you think that this is a problem, the people being ignorant of black representation?
It's a problem, and I how do I put this? I do believe it's a problem because anybody who is either independent or established struggle when people can't find their work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Word of mouth is still one of the biggest ways, and people's words go to the internet now, so it's basically word to internet. If people aren't talking about you, then no one's gonna know about your stuff unless they're really digging.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you could go on Google right now, black superheroes, and they'll come up with like a list of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of characters,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, made by all these different companies and indie companies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find what you're looking for, but if no one's talking about you, this is where the problem is, I think. This is where the ignorance comes from. It's that people aren't looking or
Mm.
that they don't know that they can just easily look this stuff up.
Right.
Because anybody who would complain about this stuff clearly hasn't done the research or they're not interested in other people doing the research. And so they
Mm-hmm.
just want to complain.
Right.
So the problem is people not looking it up. Not knowing that they can look it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said before, you got the people who are acting like this stuff doesn't exist because they've accepted that.
Right.
They've accepted that as the reality. It's like, oh man, I can't find this stuff nowhere.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll like what? They'll whine to other races of people to make that to make the black representation for them.
Oh man, that's
That's us. That's another one I should have added here. Where, like, what are your thoughts on black people looking for black representation, but whining to other races of people like Japan
oh
in
with manga.
anime? Like, yeah,
Okay.
Well,
So
just other races
like I
and
said,
just other races in general, like white people, Asians, like in general,
I'll
anyone
answer that.
but black people.
I'll answer that because okay, so so addressing that question as it is.
Hmm.
What I guess I guess it would be like what do I think about people looking for representation from other ethnic groups, right? Something like
Yes,
that. Something like
yes.
that. Okay, that works. All right. So with manga specifically, uh, I don't know what people are expecting when they want to see more black representation. Okay, if you think we're a minority here in America, what do you think is going on in Japan? We barely exist. There are black people in Japan, but we barely exist.
Hmm.
Okay, we're a novelty over there. It's not even a minority. Like you're just novel. You're like you're rare. Like you're like ultra rare. Um, so manga is made for the Japanese audience. Who are the Japanese audience? It's not the five black guys who live in Japan.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like you're not gonna see like a lot of Japanese people don't grow up with black friends and have black experiences because first of all, in Japan, the black experience doesn't exist. I
Hmm.
mean, they have their own unique black experience, but how many black mangakas are in Japan? They probably don't even publish them because the industry is run by a bunch of old xenophobes
Mm.
who aren't interested in working with black people.
Mm.
Okay? Not saying that all of Japan is racist or anything like that, but
Right.
xenophobia is a big problem over there. They don't like really anybody coming into their society and changing things up.
Right.
Okay? Like they fought their ancestors fought tooth and nail to keep that island. And they don't like it when people come in there and start telling them what to do. So
Hmm.
but even regardless of that, unless there was a large black presence in Japan, there is no precedent for black people being in Japanese manga that are usually based on Japanese folklore.
Hmm.
Most manga is based on not just the Japanese experience in the modern day, but stories that are passed down throughout the through to the youth of Japan. They grow up with these stories and they're ingrained in their culture and all this type of stuff. And black people just don't have anything to do with it outside of a
Right.
few notable figures like the Black Samurai,
Hmm.
who they talk about.
Mm.
He's a historical figure, and they talk about him all the time. And they recently made an anime about him. And you've got things like Samurai Champloo, which talks about hip hop culture, which was adopted from black folks in the modern day.
Afro
You
Samurai.
Afro Samurai, which was a collaboration project, but nonetheless, they decent show, very good.
Bleach.
You got Bleach, okay, which features a ton of black people. Kubo's
a
just
whole a whole
Kubo's the
clan.
author of that. I
Right.
can't remember his first name, but Kubo is
Taite.
the
Taite Kubo.
yeah. He's the author of Bleach, and he's just cultured.
Right.
And you'll get that sometimes. You'll get what Tenjo Tenge,
Shaman King.
Shaman
Especially
King, Dragon
especially Shaman
Ball,
King.
yeah, yeah. But like even shows like Dragon Ball and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Hunter x
Yep.
Hunter.
There's
These
a
Cowboy Bebop,
there's a
probably the best
whole
example.
there's a whole black clan in Naruto.
Yeah, if we want to talk about there's a whole black clan in Naruto, and they didn't do that. They didn't do that for a black audience. They just thought that would be neat to do. Like it was like, oh, let's have a whole village of black ninjas that rap.
Right.
Why not? I don't care. That's cool.
Hmm.
But no, but all this stuff we just named. There's a ton of representation.
Hmm.
Considering that there is no Western black experience in Japan.
Hmm.
The Western black experience doesn't exist in Japan, and as far as I'm concerned, Japan has done a better job of representing black people in general than the West has,
Mm.
with the exception of the Boondocks,
Right.
which has probably been the most accurate depiction of like day-to-day black life in animation. Period.
Yep. Yep.
It's not like it's so real, you know what I mean? But that's what that show was going for. It was going for realism.
Right.
And Aaron Magruder had a good understanding of the black experience and the general black experience, not even just his own, but what other people went through and things like that. And I related to a lot of stuff in the Boondocks, but I'm sure a lot of other black people didn't.
Same. I mean,
You know what I mean? You had a varying of opinions and stuff. Like we got into debates over the Boondocks and how accurate stuff was. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got into debates about that.
Um,
And we had little disagreements and stuff. But what I'm saying is that other than the Boondocks, Japan has actually done a really good job of just having black people exist as human beings.
mhm. Right.
And that's so rare because any other time you look at it in Western media, they're either included for inclusion purposes, political correct purposes, just bullshit.
Mm.
I don't want black people in stuff because I want to just because there's not enough black people in stuff. I want black people in stuff if they're either one going to be human or compelling characters, like something like
Like Echo from Arcane.
like Echo from Arcane, for example, or League of Legends if you're doing that. But yeah, no, like, but funny thing about League of Legends too. League of Legends, Lucian was the first black character in League of. Well, I got something to say about that, but for all intents and purposes, Lucian was the first black human in League of Legends, and I think they were like 60 to 80 characters in before he showed up.
Mm.
They weren't in the hundreds like they were now. You know what I mean? Where there's like, and still there's out of all those characters, there's still only 6 black characters in all of League of Legends.
I mean,
Kind of weird.
I wouldn't know.
I mean, but like last time I checked, there was only like 6 black characters, Lucian and Echo included.
Mhm.
Oh, and Senna. Senna is Lucian's wife. And they had a whole storyline. Similar to how they're doing Arcane. They produced it in a similar way to Arcane, but it was mostly done in cutscenes, things like that. But the point is that in fact, I think video games probably has the lowest
Nah.
representation.
I mean, look at all the fighting.
I'm not
games.
saying that they don't have representation. What I'm saying is that if you were to compare every genre or every medium, I think video games, in my experience, I think video games has the least inclusiveness.
I mean, there's also character customization too.
But and then there's that you can like a lot of games just went character customization and you can just make all the black characters you want,
Right.
which is fine with me. I don't. That's fine. But no, like even like Soul Calibur only has 1 black character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now Street Fighter has like what 10? Tekken has like 20. I'm just kidding. They ain't got 20.
Tekken has at least 5.
Tekken has 5. Yeah. Counting the. Oh no! What was I gonna say? Dead or Alive. Dead or Alive has 2. Which is funny because they hang out together too.
Right.
But this is what I'm saying. Like video games is really the better place to have this conversation. But the thing about it is that it really doesn't matter when it comes to video games because,
Right.
well, I mean, in general, none of this matters because these are all fictional characters. But anyway, I digress. Like I'm getting off topic. I'm rambling
Now,
at this point.
now, briefly, because I also briefly let's talk about the whitewashing, blackwashing mess.
Okay.
So, what are your thoughts on it generally?
So yeah, I do know a lot about this, and it's unfortunate that people just can't draw what they want to draw, because a lot of the time you see this is when people. I remember the first time I caught wind of this, people's attitudes towards it anyway. I used to watch Steven Universe a lot when it was coming on, and Garnet, who is voiced by Adele, who is a black singer, she featured with Kanye on American Boy. That was her breakout to America. I think I'm not too sure about where she started, but she was voicing Garnet, and Garnet was clearly Afrocentric. She was not black. She was a space alien who was made of hard light she was a hard light construct that was produced out of her gemstone. Alien sci-fi stuff. But Adele voiced the character, and the character was clearly black. She had an afro. She had wide hips. Blah blah blah. Clearly a black character. As ambiguous as they tried to make it, they couldn't hide it. So if somebody drew Garnet with a lighter skin pigment, now mind you, Garnet is an alien. She's not from Earth. She's not black. Okay, she just has the essence of a black person. So this person drew Garnet very light skinned, and somebody got very offended. And I remember thinking to myself, she's a rock. She's not a black person. She doesn't represent black people. She shouldn't even be used as something that we latch onto as far now, if you ask me, she's a black character.
Right.
But do I believe she exists in that category of black characters that black people should not look to for representation?
Mm.
Garnet does not do anything that presents or represents the black experience
Right.
at all. She's actually not black. She's an alien who is also just a rock
Right.
that happens to be able to manifest a physical body from light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no black person you know can do that,
Nope.
except maybe Jesus. Um, but that's the only one you ever heard of doing it.
Right.
But yeah, no, like Garnet is not a black person. She's not meant to be a black person or represent the black struggle or represent the black experience or anything like that. And I just remember thinking to myself, this character is not somebody who we should be fighting for. Just draw her however you want. In fact, the thing about it is that gems choose their form.
Mm.
So Garnet chose to look like that based on nothing. She didn't know about black people. If you go into the lore, because like now I'm going to be a nerd. If you go into the lore of what the gems are, they choose their forms, right? And so Garnet doesn't know ass from apples when it comes to African American people or Africans or anybody who is melanated or anything like that.
Right.
Okay, she's not black. So where'd she come up with that? She made it up randomly. All right. And so at any given time she wanted, she could deviate from that form and be anything else she wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the funniest thing about it is, too, going to be a nerd again, in Steven Universe, Garnet is made of a red gem alien and a blue gem alien. So where do we get her being black come from? Like, where's that? I mean, that's revealed later in the series. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling anything. Like, I don't really care. But
Right.
I should have said spoilers, whatever.
No.
But yeah, she's made of two different beings who aren't black in any sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
They don't represent the black anything.
Right.
So yeah, so like and then you get into all this other stuff about anime characters being all like different types of colors. Like, people draw anime characters black. We used to color in Goku black and make up stories about the adventures of Black Goku and things like that. Vegeta and Trunks having locks and Vegeta having an afro and stuff.
Right.
That kind of thing. Like we did all that. We making Bulma Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
Just so we could have our little old, and we did that too. It was like the Adventures of Black Goku. That's what we called it. And that
The
stuff was funny.
Adventures of Black Goku.
Yeah, imagine Goku and Vegeta with afros.
I mean, I'm pretty sure SSG 1000 already made a video about that.
Like a Hispanic Bulma.
Right.
Poir being a Rottweiler. That was wild. That's when we stopped doing that. I was like, okay, you're getting too wild now.
Now, do you think it's a double standard of when white people whitewash characters and black people blackwashing characters? Like, do you think either or is good or bad, or do you think that one of them is good and one of them is bad?
Let me say it like this. The reason why the whitewashing thing is so cringy is because there are plenty of people, because like mostly when we're talking about whitewashing, we're not talking about like fictional characters. Well, I mean, we are talking about fictional characters, but I mean in a live action setting, like movies or whatever, like they get white, like, okay, the Mandarin, not the Mandarin, I'm sorry, the in Doctor Strange, the monk that's supposed to be running the magic temple or whatever. I'm not a big Doctor Strange fan, so I can't remember, but it's supposed to be a Tibetan monk, right?
Right.
Because of a problem with China and Tibet, and them wanting to sell the movie in China, they casted a white lady as the monk from Doctor Strange, even though he was trained by a Tibetan man. So you know what they did? They replaced that character with a white woman. And now I'm not a big Doctor Strange fan, so I don't care. But there was a problem there, because it's like, okay, well, you could have just gotten a Tibetan. You could have literally gotten any Tibetan actor to do this role.
Right.
Okay, it's not like she did a superb job as the monk or whatever that character is supposed to be. Sorcerer Supreme, I think, is the title that character had. But
Right.
until Doctor Strange got the Sorcerer Supreme title. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no, like why did that have to be a white woman? Just because you wanted to sell the movie to China and China's having beef with Tibet? Is that okay? Um, that's a problem. Okay,
Yeah.
that's when whitewashing goes wrong. Okay, now
Right.
whitewashing is always wrong in the ethical sense, but if you have a comic book character, right,
Mm-hmm.
and they are usually depicted as black, and then you cast a white person to play them, that's a little weird too. Okay, that
Mm-hmm.
makes people feel some kind of way, and so I'm basically framing the issue with whitewashing so I can get on the blackwashing thing.
Right.
Either way, no matter how you slice this stuff, no matter how you spin it, no matter how I say it, it's a problem. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants to see this happen. Just cast an Asian actress. Just cast a black guy. Why can't you just give us what we're used to seeing? Why does a white guy have to play this character who everybody is used to being black or
Right.
Asian or Mexican or whatever? Why are you
Mm-hmm.
doing this?
Makes
You know
sense.
what I mean? I mean, it was like you ask these people, it's like why, and then they give you all the excuses in the world, or they don't say anything, and it
Mm.
just leaves everybody feeling kind of, gypped. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
for lack of a better term, I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
cheated. How about that? Cheated.
Right.
Everybody feeling cheated and disparaged and forgotten about, and it brings up all these racial issues and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
just don't do it.
You're
So
right.
why would you do it for blackwashing? Why would you take a character that people are used to being white and then make them black? Now, with Superman, that doesn't matter because Superman is an alien.
Mm-hmm.
Superman's not from Earth. He doesn't have the black experience. None of that stuff exists on his planet. So if there are if melanated Kryptonians exist, then there's no reason why Superman can't be black. I don't have a problem with that. No one should.
Right. Right.
Okay? There's nothing specific about Batman that indicates that he has to be a white guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what people are used to.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing goes for a lot of fictional characters, especially in comic books and stuff like that. A lot of their heritage doesn't have anything to do with whether or not they're black or white. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Guy Gardner, one of the Green Lanterns, he's Irish. So, have there been black Irish people? Yes. Is that common?
I mean,
No.
the Irish were called the same slurs as black people.
I mean, but like marginalized group is going to be subjected to bigotry,
Mm.
and racism and things like that. So the Irish dealt with a lot of stuff that other marginalized groups dealt with,
Right.
and they fought back very violently, and look where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. But like, regardless though, like Guy Gardner and a few other characters I can think of, their actual ethnicity is tied into their story.
Right.
So Guy Gardner can never be a black guy unless you really want to go push the limit, like whatever the fuck. But you shouldn't do if a character is traditionally depicted as white, I don't recommend that you change that. I think that's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make a black character, make your own black character.
Right.
Don't try to capitalize on it, because this is the other thing too. This is the actual appropriation here. Like, because you know people talking about cultural appropriation and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If Spider-Man is white, and I'm talking about Peter Parker, not Miles Morales. If Spider-Man
Right.
is white and you make Peter Parker a black guy, then you're just capitalizing on the fame that the white Peter Parker had garnered.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you're doing. So,
Right.
at its core, whitewashing and blackwashing are bad, but the purposes for which they're done are, completely different. Like when they make a black or Asian or Mexican character a white guy for whatever reason, when they do the whitewashing thing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're thinking. Okay, I just think it's really in poor taste. But when you talk about doing that same thing in reverse and making like a traditionally, popular white character black, trying to get some representation in there and things like that, like you're changing
Yeah.
things for representation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, then at that point, all you're doing is capitalizing on a white character.
Mm-hmm.
On a white character's popularity. And as somebody, and for me being pro-black, going back to that very first thing, for me being pro-black, I find that to be appalling.
Mm.
I don't approve at all. Like, no, if you make your own character, don't try to capitalize on a white character. That's like trying 100 years in the future telling everybody that Teddy Roosevelt was a black man.
Right.
That's appropriation, dude. Come on.
Yep.
Pure and
It
simple.
is.
Don't blackwash, don't whitewash. Just make your own characters. Just do your own thing.
Even even
Stop trying to
fans,
capitalize on popular stuff.
even fans, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's the thing.
Like a fan taking a character and then just changing their ethnicity.
As an individual, you can do whatever you want.
Mm.
Honestly, like I still don't approve. Like but if you wanted to do, like, nothing stopped us from drawing Goku with dark skin. He didn't have dark skin.
Right.
Most Saiyans didn't. In fact, I'm not aware of a Saiyan with dark skin. I'm talking about like dark brown skin, like we used to like we would draw just to do the little parody adventures of Black Goku and stuff like that. We weren't doing that for black representation. We just thought it would look cool if Goku was black.
Right.
And then it spilled over into the rest of the cast. I was like, oh, well, what if Vegeta was black?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that looks cool. Like, you know what I mean? We did it because we thought it looked cool.
Right.
And they were cool characters at the time, and it was just great. Well, Vegeta's still a cool character, but anyway, Krillin being black, come on, like,
yeah,
it just worked. Everybody knew somebody who looked like Krillin. I'm not even joking.
No, you're not. I completely agree.
But like, okay, so like, but anyway, as a fan of something, do whatever you want. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm talking about like industry. It's more prevalent in industry. If you want to draw Shaquille O'Neal as a white guy, that's a little weird. But, it's not hurting anybody.
I mean, it's funny.
It's kind of funny. Shaquille O'Neal some big white people. But yeah, fan art is pretty much a fair game. But fan art is fair game because it's fan art. It does not represent the character in any official capacity. It does not represent the person in any official capacity. Okay, That's fine. That's fine. I still, it's a little weird, but it's fine. No one should chastise you for that. I mean, you're still gonna get some weird looks, but no one should really verbally chastise you or try to bully you off the internet for that kind of nonsense.
Right.
It's when they do this in industry is when it matters. Because that is the commercial, pure representation of the character, and that's what they're selling. Okay. Right. But anyway, I digress.
Okay.
I don't want to keep rambling.
No, that's last. No, you're fine. You're fine. But
I can talk about this kind of stuff all day.
True. We just have two. We just have one more topic, and that is about black people cosplaying. Now, what are your thoughts on racism in cosplay, and do you believe that there is racism in cosplay, and how would you deal with it if you were in such a position?
It's so unique.
Well, okay. First of all, what are your thoughts on like people cosplaying as other races?
Well, I'm gonna answer all of that. Just with that first question you asked me. Yeah. All of that stuff is encompassed. So, I'm a real huge proponent for cosplay. I love cosplay. My friends took me to my first convention right after high school. When we graduated from high school, they took me to my first convention. It was Colossal Con in Sandusky, Ohio. Well, it's in Sandusky, Ohio now. It was somewhere else before. But Actually, I think it was always in Sandusky. Either way, they took me to my first Colossal Con. And dude, I was immediately like, oh my God, I want to get into doing this. How do I get into doing this? It's one of the things I actually do in my business. I've got some people interested in cosplaying. But here's the thing though. Over time, we would go from con to con. Like after that first one, I was like, we got to do this again. And we did it again and again and again. And I saw so much stuff, and I heard so many horror stories. I heard a lot of good stories too, but I heard so many horror stories about racism in the cosplay communities. And I'm like, there's a community for this? This seems like an odd thing to build a community around. And so, any hobby has its niches.
Yep.
And so those niches form little pockets of people around them called communities. And so it's not so weird of an idea to form a community around cosplay, but this is why I think it's strange that there would be a community around cosplay. Because cosplay is very personal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I doubt that any two people are going to agree. Now, you have people who take it to the extreme and they become really good at it, and they have services where they provide their own cosplays. They have social media accounts where they cosplay for their fans, and they get paying money to cosplay stuff, etc., etc. You've got all kinds of people, but then there's like your typical cosplayer who's just doing it for fun. And I think for the most part, that is what the majority of people are doing. In my experience, most people are cosplaying just for fun. Okay. It's like Halloween. A
Yeah.
lot of people put a lot of effort into their Halloween costumes, and there's whole communities around that, like, the artistry side of things, the serious side of things, the industry kind of things.
Mm.
But then there are the people who just slap on some orange makeup and call themselves a pumpkin and just go get some candy. You know what I mean? They don't care. They're just doing it for fun. They're just
Right.
doing it for fun. And, like, sometimes people make really elaborate cosplays because they're really good at engineering, art, etc., etc. But they're still just there to have fun. They don't take it seriously. You know what I mean? They made it because they wanted to maximize how much fun they were having.
Mm.
Okay, so they made a super really good cosplay or a super really good Halloween costume or something like that. Or they went to a masquerade ball or you know what the Met Gala is, right?
No.
The Met Gala is basically Halloween for rich people.
Mm.
And so they get these $1 million dresses and suits made, and they look stupid. They do. They look stupid. I think I could count on one hand how many Met Gala outfits that I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. And they all look like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure characters. But even still, you know what I mean. So they all look goofy no matter what. It's just Halloween for rich people, but or a convention, like an anime convention for rich people.
Mm-hmm.
The point I'm trying to make is that, like, in these pockets you have these people who are Puritans, and so these Puritans have the same attitude that we were just talking about with people who don't like whitewash and blackwash and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't stand it when white people cosplay black characters, and they can't stand it when black people cosplay white characters, and they really can't, because a lot of these guys are weebs, they really can't stand it when non-Asian people cosplay Asian characters.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, so this is why it's unique. So the racism exists, all right? Right?
Mm.
Okay. The racism exists, but it's purely aggravated racism. Okay, and what I mean by that is that let's say a white guy goes to an anime convention and he cosplays as a Japanese character who is Japanese in his series, and he's Japanese boy, and he's the Japanese. He's all Japanese, 100% Japanese, and a white guy's cosplaying him, right?
Mm.
The white guy cosplaying him just likes the show and likes the outfit he wears and just wants to portray the character, right?
Right.
So the racism comes from the person who sees that and is like, "You're not Japanese. Take that off. You shouldn't be cosplaying them. Why don't you cosplay a white character?" So the racism there is purely aggressive.
Yeah.
The person putting on the cosplay isn't trying to appropriate Japanese culture or take a role away from a Japanese person. In fact, the guy, his friend who cosplayed the same thing is probably Japanese, and there you go. So, like, whatever. But he's not from Japan. He's from America.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So where do you draw the line at, right?
Right.
So, yeah, the racism, and I can tell you worse stuff, but the racism is there. And then you have the whole, because, like, cosplay, of course, brings out that whole blackface thing.
Mm.
Every now and then you'll see people going above and beyond trying to look exactly like the character, even though they're not of the ethnicity, nor do they have the melanin or the skin tone to pull it off, that kind of thing. And so they'll dye their hair, bleach their whatevers, and rub shoe polish on their face to try to make it happen.
Right.
So yeah, the racism is there, but I mean, even then, these people are just dressing up for fun.
Mm.
They're dressing up so they can look like the character. They're not trying to hurt anybody.
Mm.
The racism in cosplay is purely aggressive.
Well, you're saying that, like, it exists on both sides. It's not just white people against black people.
No. It's anybody who has the opinion that someone can't. Basically, this is the core philosophy for somebody who is racist when it comes to cosplay.
Right.
If you are not the ethnicity of the character you are cosplaying, you shouldn't be doing it.
Mm.
That's their whole belief system, and that's where these arguments start. That's where the racism starts.
Mm. Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Now, yeah, I think you know what's coming next.
What?
The somber cosplay story.
All right. Okay, so you want me to tell the somber? I should have thought. I think I was thinking about that as I was explaining things too. I just kind of forgot we talked about that.
Right.
Briefly.
Right.
But yeah. Okay. So yeah. let's start. I'll try to make it brief because I've been going on. I could say a whole lot, but I'll try to make it brief. Try to make
Okay.
it real nice, short, and sweet.
Gotcha.
So, I think after my third convention, this is when this happened. So I had I talked to a lot of cosplayers and things like that, talking to them about like just cosplay, like just shooting the shit about cosplay and things. And I learned a lot, and I definitely learned that I wanted to invest in doing cosplays as part of what I want to do for my producer stuff.
Right.
I want to produce some cosplays. Get some people who like to model and dress them up, and we do photo shoots and things like that. And it's all good. So that's going to be a big part of my business.
Right.
But so like within that time period, I got into a Facebook group full of black nerds who like to cosplay and like to watch anime and read manga and talk about stuff and blah blah blah, share interests. And so I was in this, I didn't, even back then I didn't use Facebook that much, but I was in this group, and one day, news about this Korean cosplayer dressing up as Sombra from Overwatch, right? Sombra had just come out too. Sombra was like one of the newest characters to come out,
Right.
and it wasn't like, I don't even think it was a month after her release. It might have been just a week after her release. This Korean girl cosplayed as her and did a whole bunch of photos and blah, blah, blah. And she did the whole nine. She tanned, she used makeup, she dyed her hair, she did everything that you could do to look like Sombra. Now, this woman is Korean, who's cosplaying her. Sombra is Hispanic or Latina or whatever. She ain't Korean.
Right.
And so like a lot of black circles, you'll have a lot of Hispanic, Latina, whatever kind of people, Spanish people. You'll have a lot of that cross pollination, and so a lot of these black cosplayers, most of the cosplayers were girls. They got really upset about this and started talking about this in the group, talking about death threats, talking about what they were going to do to her, social media, things like that, blah, blah, blah. Get her, this is before canceling. This is long before canceling became a buzz term. They was going to cancel her, all those kind of things. Like, just to summarize, they were trying to cancel her, basically, and probably put a hit out on her. But, for cosplaying as somebody who wasn't her race, right? Because we petty out here. That's just what we do. It's that serious. It's that detrimental. It's literally the whole civil rights movement. Like, if we let her cosplay as Sombra, then they're gonna put us right back in chains again. You know what I mean? Like, first it's Korean girls cosplaying as Sombra. Next thing you know, black people back in chains. It's literally a 1-2. It's literally the next step.
Right.
It's a half step. Anyway, just to speak to their irateness. And so I, being the problem solver that I am, I came in there because my friend Stan, he basically told me all the news that was happening in the Black cosplay group, because like I said, I wasn't using Facebook all like that. So he is the one who got me hip to the news, and it was like, look at them wilding. You know what I mean? Like just wilding. I'm trying not to say what I want to say, because we trying to do the semi-professional.
Right.
You get the gist of what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, no, I completely understand what you're saying.
No, you get the gist of what I'm saying, right?
Continue with the story. Man.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. So he gets me hip to this situation, and so I look into it and I read the whole thing. I read everything that they're saying. I even do research on the girl who did the cosplay. Now, it's been so long since this happened. This was I think this was like 8 years ago.
Right.
And so I don't remember what the Korean girl's name was. I don't even know if she still cosplays, if that was a one-off thing. I think she was famous, so she probably still does it.
I think her name is Peon Kim.
Does she have a Sombra cosplay in her repertoire?
Yes, I can just show you the.
Oh, that's probably her then.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead, put it up while I'm concluding the story here.
I was gonna look for it anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's her.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember it now. Yeah, that was her.
Peon Kim.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at this stuff. Like, please put this in the video.
I will. I will.
Yeah, put this in the video. In fact, this should be like part of the thumbnail, maybe. Maybe because like we're gonna get to this point anyway. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to edit this a little bit.
Yeah, no. I already planned on editing
Yeah, you're
this
gonna have to edit.
story.
Okay, but I'm gonna make your job a little less hard now. All right,
No, that's fine.
so I read through everything. I look up this Peon Kim.
Peon Kim.
Yeah, I look up Peon Kim, and I'm like, wow. And then I look at what she really looks like, and I'm like, wow. She went above and beyond.
Right.
She transracial. You would have never guessed that this girl was Korean. You would have never guessed.
I mean, Asian, yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of Hispanic people share like, Asian-y kind of traits, whatever. But regardless of that, I was blown away. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Now I'm fair. At this point, I've seen everybody. I believe that cosplay is free game. It's just like fan fiction. It's just like fan art. Do whatever you want. It's not official, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. It would only become problematic if, like, people were changing the paradigm by doing this. If her cosplay led to Blizzard making Sombra Asian, then that would be enough. That would be genuine cause for concern. Okay. Right. But either way, this person just really wanted to do this cosplay. She believed she could pull it off. She did it. She wasn't trying to be racist. She wasn't trying to take something away from anybody. It's cosplay. You know what I mean? Most people aren't getting paid to do this stuff. Unless you're a model, you're not getting paid to cosplay. So she's not interrupting anybody's money. She's not interrupting anybody's success. None of that stuff. And these are all points I brought up when I replied to the whole situation. Now, the main point of my argument was, okay, if you guys are so hung up on this, why don't y'all get one of y'all Latina girls in here, or your Spanish girls, or what have you, and then just outdo her?
Right.
Because nothing's gonna beat the genuine article, right? Get a real Latina, get a real Hispanic, get a real, get a real authentic girl in here to do a Sombra cosplay. It's not like they didn't have the means. Sombra's cosplay isn't that like difficult.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not that it wasn't that crazy. And so after I posted that, I got off Facebook and I started playing. I think I was playing Guild Wars 2 at the time, but I started playing Guild Wars 2. Just grinding out, just doing dungeons and things like that, doing quests. I come back a little whiles later, and Stan tells me, "Yeah, they replied to your post and kicked you out of the group." And so I couldn't see the message, right? And so he had to show it to me because he was still in the group. And so he showed it to me, and this one girl, I think, who was in charge of the whole group, at this point, I think she was in charge of the whole group, something like that. I can't remember. Like Stan remembers more about this kind of stuff than I do. But essentially, I did get kicked out of the group by her, but she left me a very interesting reply. She was like, "Why don't?" It was like, you need to get out of here with your hotep ass. Like that, like words to that effect.
Right.
Okay. And so, because a lot of the stuff I was saying was just smart. I was like, why don't y'all just get one of y'all? You know what I mean? I wasn't saying nothing that couldn't have been applied reasonably. They just wanted to be mad, and so they kicked me out of the group because I was talking too much sense, I guess.
Right.
I mean, they were upset. They were upset with her because she was because they believed that she was interfering with authentic, people of the authentic ethnicity that should be cosplaying her. But they were just mad. They was just racist, and they wanted to have their anger. And so I come in and I was like, why don't y'all just do it back and better? And then they kicked me out of the group. Like I said I didn't even say anything mean to them. You know what I mean? I didn't even come in there being like, y'all need to calm all down with them death threats and stuff. I did say y'all ain't gonna do nothing. You know what I mean? I did challenge their death threats and things like that. It was like, y'all ain't gonna do nothing. How about this? How about y'all actually do the smart thing?
Right.
So that might have offended them a little bit, maybe. But they was just mad. They was just racist, and they just want to be mad and racist.
Right.
Don't like when it gets to the point where people are threatening you over your cosplay. All right, because how they like to say black people can't be racist. Yeah, that's a lie.
Yep.
They sent her death threats. They blah blah blah. like don't give me that systematic nonsense either, man. Because I at least believe that they would have beat her up if they could get a hold of her. But this girl lived in Korea, so she was in no danger.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the whole story. I see an Asian woman cosplaying a Hispanic girl. A bunch of black women get mad, and then I talk some sense, and I get kicked out of the group.
Sounds like life. Just sounds.
Dude, it was one of the
like,
most surreal things that has ever happened in my life.
Sounds like your everyday. Honestly,
I'll tell you what though, from that moment forward, I decided that I was going to be very selective with the next group of people who had things in common with me.
yeah, I don't know.
That I hung out
How
with.
did you even?
It was a black cosplay group. I was invited to it because we knew I didn't just know Stan in there. I knew other people in there.
Right.
Hmm. I got likes on my reply.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is old Facebook. I got likes on my reply to the whole situation, and then they kicked me out of the group. So somebody agreed with me.
That is crazy. That is just how the cookie crumbles.
It's like I wonder if like the people who agreed with me got kicked out of the group too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That never came up, but yeah, like it's crazy.
Right. Mm-hmm. It is crazy. Well, it has been like an hour and 21 minutes.
You won't cut this down for time. It's fine.
I mean, I'm not gonna cut the whole interview. Is definitely getting like posted. So, but like that, not in the video. I'm just gonna pick out like parts of this interview to complement my commentary in the video.
Don't keep this in. But you know what you should do? I see people do this all the time. They will post the normal video, and then like a little later they'll post the entire thing.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking I was gonna do. Mm. But yeah,
they'll let the first one run for like a few days, and then they'll post the entire one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We've pretty much hit all the bases that, well, I wanted to hit at least. I thank you for giving me the time to. Thanks. It's kind of awkward, but well, thank you for
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just. Yeah. I don't know why it's getting awkward now.
Well, you're still closing out, so yeah. I don't know if you wanted me to say anything at the end or plug anything or whatever. We kind of did all the plugs.
You can plug again. Fuck it.
Okay, well, set me up.
All right. Well, Pauldron, if you want to again, sort of promote your stuff, your social media, you may do so now.
I am Blaque Pauldron on everything: Twitter, YouTube, wherever social media is. If it's not Blaque Pauldron, it's not me. But yeah, so it's spelled BLAQUE PAULDRON.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he'll have it in the description.
It's like cauldron except with the P.
Yeah, but what did I say? I said Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. Those are going to be the most important thing. Those three specifically.
Right.
I don't use Facebook a lot. I am on Instagram, but I won't be using my Instagram until I start streaming.
Mm-hmm.
So, go there too. Why not? Just Instagram. I've got pictures on there.
Right. But yeah, once again, thank you for taking the time out to answer some questions. And yeah. Okay.
All right.